Awesome. So how did you get from harvesting rocks, by the way? I love the term harvesting because it sounds way better than randomly walking around picking up rocks. But let's go. How did you go from harvesting rocks to getting into IT? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again on another episode of The Download. We all join you remotely from all over the country. We're excited about having a new guest on today, Michael Fulton, who will introduce himself in just a moment. As a quick reminder, the purpose of this Download podcast is to meet new technologists, people who are in the business, understand a lot of different things that are taking place in the world of technology, talking about new ideas, notes, strategies, things like that a lot of our listeners and viewers can take advantage of. I am Jake Sherrill. I'm the founder and chairman of Tier 4 Advisors. I started Tier 4 about a decade ago on the premise of helping IT professionals with projects that they are not doing all that regularly. I heard an interesting stat back in the day that the average IT professional will take part in 1 or 2 data center projects in their entire career. I heard another interesting stat a couple weeks ago that they said there's over 5,500 vendors in the cybersecurity space alone. So in the sense of doing projects once or twice in a 30 or 40-year span, as well as dealing with up to 5,500 vendors in one siloed category, how do you make sense of all that? Well, Tier 4 Advisors is here to help you with those types of projects, to try and make sense of all that, with all the notes and all the quotes from all the projects we've done over the last decade. So we do projects all over the world. We'll have a little infographic here on the screen that talks a little bit about our areas of expertise. And regardless of what it is that we might be able to help you with, you can find out some more information at tier4advisors.com. With that said, Joel, our trusty VP of marketing, who is always on our Download podcast. Joel, say hi to everybody for us real quick.
Hello, great to be here. The sun's shining, spring is here. I feel like summer is a week or two away. I love it.
Indeed it is. Springtime in the South, for those who are joining from around the world, is a great time to be in the South right before it gets hot and humid. So come visit us sometime in Atlanta, Georgia in the spring months. It's a nice place to be. So with that, Michael, say hi to everybody that's watching or listening to the Download podcast here. And please introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are.
Great. Well, hi, all of you Download podcast listeners. I'm excited to be joining you today. My name is Mike Fulton, as Jake already said. I am the Vice President of Commercial Strategy at Expedient. And in addition to being the Vice President of Commercial Strategy at Expedient, I also am an adjunct professor at the Ohio State University, which we'll probably talk about a little bit throughout the conversation today. I've been at Expedient for about 18 months, was brought in as their Chief Innovation Officer. Prior to my time at Expedient, I had the opportunity to be a part of technology innovation at Nationwide. And prior to that, I had about 20 years of Procter & Gamble experience, where I was their chief cloud architect, amongst many of the jobs I did during my time there. And then ran the Americas division for a boutique strategy and architecture consulting and training company for a couple of years between Nationwide and P&G. So variety of roles across my career, and love talking about technology, love talking about IT. Really looking forward to our conversation here today, Jake and Joel.
All right, good stuff. Michael, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your first job that you ever had in your career? We'd love to hear about that.
Great. My first job, let's see if I kind of dust off the cobwebs. I believe my first job, I worked for a farmer's market called Farmer Dan's. And my first job was to harvest rocks from the field. So all day that summer, all day, every day, I would go out and we would drive a pickup truck up and down the field. And my job was to pick up all the rocks and throw them in the back of the pickup truck. And then we would go off and we would unload them somewhere. And so I threw them all out. and up and down, up and down. I think by the end of the summer, I graduated to picking peaches off of the peach trees. But that was my first job.
Awesome. So how did you get from harvesting rocks, by the way? I love the term harvesting because it sounds way better than randomly walking around picking up rocks. But let's go. How did you go from harvesting rocks to getting into IT?
Oh, it's a great story. So I was fortunate. My dad happened to be the VP of IT at a financial management firm back in Dayton, Ohio, a company called CH Dean and Associates. And he brought me in to basically do some grunt work around the office. So I filed papers for him that summer. And then part of the work that he had me doing was actually taking and mounting these platter-sized discs onto the disk drive, printing out a listing of every file on the disk, taking off the platter, mounting the next platter, doing a printout, and then I had to do a manual paper comparison of all of the files on the disk to make sure that we had a copy of every file in the right place.
Right.
And so that was my first tech job. After doing this for about a week, I finally got up the courage to go to him and say, why the heck are you doing this? We're working with computers. Why don't you write a computer program to do this grunt work that I'm doing? And he looked at me and said, yeah, it's a great idea. I have my computer programmers writing systems to interact with Wall Street. So they don't have time to do what you're doing. That's why I'm paying you. And so I asked, well, could I teach myself how to code and do it myself?
How do I do that? Right.
And so I spent about 3 or 4 weeks learning how to code, and then wrote myself out of a job. And so because I was now a computer programmer and he needed programming help, he had me start working with his team to go write subroutines. By the end of the summer, I was helping to write the portfolio management software that was managing the funds that we were interacting with Wall Street to sell and buy stocks with. And so, yeah, very quickly and easily got into computer programming. I would eventually become that company's first telecommuter as I took a 2800 baud modem with me in a Wise dumb terminal off to college. And then my part-time job for college was calling back to the mothership every night and spending a couple hours writing code.
That's great. That's a great story. And by the way, a good lesson for everybody out there, whether you are a high school student or a CIO, IT is one of those interesting fields, Michael, using your story as an example, where things move pretty quickly, to say the least. And for those who are wanting an opportunity, you can move pretty quickly up the chain, if you will, from filing papers in Michael's case to writing code in a matter of weeks or months, depending on where you go and if you're willing to work hard and kind of pay your dues for a minute, right?
Absolutely. And it actually also talks to how available this industry is to people, right? And my last stat I had seen, over 50% of developers, I think the number is actually somewhere north of 70% of developers are actually self-taught. So if you are willing to put in the time and the effort to learn, to teach yourself, to learn new things, IT is a tremendously awesome field for people to get into. So,
Indeed. So with that said, what do you enjoy most about the IT industry or being in the IT field?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jake. For me personally, I love being inspired by emerging technologies and the new what's possibles that those technologies create. The ability to solve new problems by leveraging emerging technologies, to me, is the thing that excites me the most. Really gets me up at night, or gets me up in the morning, not at night. Hopefully not at night.
Hopefully not at night. We have a lot of clients that are up at night for the wrong reasons, but hopefully it excites you to get up in the morning, right?
Right. If they had Expedient as a partner, they wouldn't be up at night because they would have 100% SLAs on their systems.
I love that. That's the truth. Let's talk about professional accomplishments. I'm sure you've had a lot of them. You've got a great resume, not just working at one place for 30 years. You've seen a lot of stuff. What's been your greatest professional accomplishment, would you say, that you want to at least share with our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, I think for me personally, the achievement I'm most proud of really was getting the opportunity to teach at Ohio State. So I teach all things digital at Ohio State. I teach both undergrads and executive education, and getting the opportunity to do that was something that I had kind of aspired to do for much of my career. And when I moved to Columbus to take the job at Nationwide, the opportunity to do that really came open for me. And that was something I'm really proud of having the chance to do.
Really cool. That's an awesome giving back and still staying kind of plugged in kind of opportunity that you have there. That's really cool. I do a lot of mentorship stuff as well, and certainly like doing, the day job stuff and building companies and investing in other things, but giving back and helping out is in listening to new ideas is really cool, isn't it?
It is. And I tell you, one of the things that's really fun, the course I teach is actually the last course that MIS students at Ohio State will go through before they graduate and go off into the workforce. And so, and the course is really designed to teach them everything they need to know about IT except for how to code, right? And so I get to kind of put a bow on everything that they've learned for the last 4 years. Yeah. And not only do I get a chance to do that, but the way that the course is structured, I actually get a chance to bring in some of my friends and colleagues to help share their stories. I lecture on Tuesdays, and I bring in a guest lecturer from the industry to talk about the day in their life on Thursdays. And so I am able to share so many different perspectives with the students before they go off and learn to live it for themselves as they start their jobs. It's so much fun.
Well, it's really, really cool. It's admirable. It's probably really fun for you to do that. It's a lot of hard work as well. If you ever need someone to come up and speak to your class that's in the industry, would love to give back any way I can. Happy to jump on a plane and come in and talk.
All of you just heard that. Jake's going to be my guest lecturer next year, so help me hold him to that. All right.
Anytime I can. Good stuff. We're going to keep moving. For a lot of our viewers and listeners, that we do something every time we film one of these conversations called The Best Thing I Saw All Week. Joel, we're going to go ahead and start with you. What was the best thing that Joel Andersen saw all week?
So this one's family related. At the end of the school year or approaching the end of the school year, oftentimes there's dance programs. I have 2 daughters, many of the viewers know. So they had their dance recitals this last weekend. And my 6-year-old and my 2-year-old, both of them did a fantastic job. But this year, my 2-year-old was involved in dance, and she was just the cutest thing. So to see these 2 sisters doing their year-end recitals was just absolutely darling. Brought a smile to my face, and of course we give them flowers afterwards, and we celebrate them. And they think they would have just, danced at a famous concert hall or Madison Square Garden ballet or whatever. So it was incredibly fun just to watch my girls have a good time with their dance recitals. That was the best thing I saw all week.
That's great, man. Awesome. There's nothing like being a dad and watching your daughters. It's great having boys. I have boys as well, but it's nothing like watching your daughters do something that they enjoy doing and feeling like princesses or queens. And congratulations. That's a lot of fun. Michael, how about yourself? What was the best thing that you saw all week yourself?
I was going to use my weekend, Mother's Day. We went and my family went and saw Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And that was an excellent movie. Really enjoyed it. My wife really enjoyed it. So that was a great time. But you brought up Bruce Thornton, the Ohio State basketball player. So I also have to bring up the other best thing I've seen this week, which was Ohio State just yesterday signed the #1 prospect in the nation for 2024, quarterback Dylan Raiola. So we continue that quarterback gravy train here at Ohio State. So that's also another great thing I saw this week.
You guys are killing it with all this Ohio State talk. Fantastic school. Many of our viewers know I'm a Utah grad. I support my Utah Utes. For those that watched the Rose Bowl game, it was fantastic. It was great scoring back and forth. Unfortunately, Utah didn't come out on top, but hats off to the Ohio State Buckeyes. But man, there's been a lot of Ohio State love on this call so far. Lots of Ohio State love.
All right, I'm going to take a page out of Joel's book and talk about kids. A lot of people know that I've got quite a few kids, and I'm lucky enough to coach a couple baseball in the springtime. I'm currently coaching a 12-year-old team as well as an 8-year-old team. We were in the semifinal playoff game yesterday. I'm gonna brag a little bit, humble brag, but I'm gonna brag a little bit about my 8-year-old. He's my third son, and having two older brothers, he gets beat up a little bit from time to time, but it makes him tough, right? Michael, I see you nodding your head. You probably know the drill, or at least have friends that were in that role.
I have two younger brothers.
Yeah. So anyways, our team is undefeated at the moment. We are the favorite in the league. My son does lead the league in home runs.
Nice.
For the record. He's a pretty good little baseball player. We went up 14-7. There's some run rules and some weird things. I'll save it for another time, all the explanations there. The other team, long story short, over the next 2 innings scores 9 runs. We scored 1. So they were up 16-15. They came all the way back. They were up 16-15. And then it's our at bats. We had the top of our lineup coming up. And long story short, we walked it off with my son scoring the game-winning run. So that was a lot of fun yesterday. We haven't won the championship yet, but we are in the championship come Saturday. Okay. We're going to be playing one of the teams that will already have 1 loss. We have none in the tournament. And that was the best thing that I saw all week, because we went into the dugout down a couple of runs going into the bottom of the 6th. I told my kids, or down 1 run, excuse me. And I knew that we had the top of the lineup coming up. I said, we got them exactly where we want them. And my players looked at me like, are you crazy? We're losing right now. And it was the top of the lineup. And I knew unless something crazy happened, we were going to walk it off. And sure enough, we did. So that was the best thing that I saw all week. And
awesome.
I tell you what, how do you beat stuff like that? So
I love kids baseball. It's so much fun.
It is a lot of fun, especially up till 8U. Then you go to 9U and it's kid pitch. It's like watching paint dry for a year as the kids learn to pitch. But it is a lot of fun. So
it comes back later on. It gets a lot more fun. Once they get up to about 11, 12, then they're all right again.
Yep. We've got a 12 and we've got a 15U now, which is fun because, the velocity of those pitchers has increased, obviously, but when the bat connects on a nice ball, those balls are flying a few hundred feet now, which is a lot of fun. So
very cool.
So I know we touched on a brief introduction to Expedient at the beginning of the call and in your kind of role there, but just as a refresher, Mike, give us the 60-second kind of core value proposition of Expedient, kind of like overall the different things that you offer and why someone would approach Expedient and use your services. Give us a quick refresher on Expedient real quick.
Yeah, so Expedient is a full stack cloud service provider. We're the 3rd largest enterprise VMware based cloud platform in North America, and companies will come to work with Expedient when they're on their cloud journey and really trying to kind of optimize that journey as they go forward. Part of the value proposition with Expedient is that we have services for every step along the way on that cloud journey. Whether you're exiting your data center and you need a place to land some gear in a co-location facility, or whether you're trying to stand up a private cloud, or whether you're looking for a public cloud like an Expedient Enterprise Cloud offering, or even if you're working with hyperscale clouds and you need a multi-cloud management platform to be able to navigate your workloads regardless of where they sit, Expedient has offerings across that entire spectrum, along with a lot of the other capabilities you need to surround that with, like security capabilities, operations capabilities, networking capabilities, and whatnot. So
Perfect.
our broad portfolio really provides that continuum of care across your entire IT landscape as you progress along your cloud journey.
Excellent. Thank you for the quick refresher. So I noticed over your shoulder there on your whiteboard in big red letters, it says cloud different. And I've heard that a time or two as we've had some conversations with Expedient, over the past few weeks and months. But what does that mean, cloud different, when Expedient says that, when you say that, cloud different, what is that?
And so when we talk about cloud different, we talk about how you can address some of these problems, right? And so there's a couple of key things that we talk about. First off, it's about having a slightly different perspective than the typical perspective that people take on their cloud journey, right? Most organizations 5-7 years ago had a CIO that stepped on stage at a big conference or something, or in front of an all hands meeting with the company and said, we're going to the cloud. We'll be all in on AWS or all in on Azure in 5 years, right? Or maybe even not that long, maybe 2 years.
2 years,
right?
yeah.
And that just wasn't the reality. So part of the reason is that when leaders did that, when they understood the cloud, what they thought of as the cloud was a hyperscale cloud, Amazon, Azure, and Google. What they were missing was this whole other range of options that are out there called enterprise clouds. Some analysts call it a subscale cloud versus hyperscale cloud. Some analysts call it alternate clouds. Some analysts call it enterprise clouds. But there's a whole series of different cloud options that are out there for you that are optimized for different kinds of workloads, right? Expedient is an example of that. We have a VMware-based enterprise cloud that is optimized and architected for VMware workloads, right? There's a lot of value in that, a lot of workloads that work well in that sort of an environment versus hyperscale cloud that's optimized really for modern microservices architectures, for platform as a service, for different kinds of workloads, right? So that's the first thing, is this perspective that when we talk about cloud does not equal hyperscale. If you really want to be effective, if you really want to open up a cloud operating model to as much of your IT landscape as possible, considering alternate clouds on the journey can have a big impact.
Without a doubt. And let me chime in there, because I can't tell you how many times a week or a month we are hearing clients say something to the effect of, tried to go all in at X hyperscaler, realized the hard way that was probably not the right choice that we had already made. Cost, other issues, whatever you want to, whatever excuse you want to throw out there. The reality is that there are so many options out there that are not just the big 3 public hyperscalers, at least domestically here, right? And to Mike's point, understanding not only what your needs are from an uptime or RTO, RPO, if we're talking DR standpoint might be, but also understanding, really, why are you going to the cloud? What type of tooling, resources, scalability, all this, that, the other, are you trying to accomplish? So many people are trying to check the cloud box right now, or have in the past, and realizing that maybe that choice of whatever cloud it is they went with was not the right choice. And, maybe now kind of cloud version 2.0 or version 3.0 involves, maybe that dedicated private, virtual public, virtual private, all the other terms that Mike used that are not hyperscale vendor clouds, if you will. So again, it's an interesting, ever evolving landscape right now. I love the term cloud different, because so many folks just kind of, take the hill of the public hyperscaler and think, phew, we're done. But that's not always the right choice for a lot of our clients that we're seeing out there. And usually they come to tier 4 after they've already kind of learned the hard way, I guess, to say the least, that one of those is not, where they want to be long term.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're seeing this as well, Jake, but what I would tell you is that as I kind of talk to people at different organizations and kind of based on my personal experience with some of the places I've been at before I joined Expedient, the number of workloads in a typical enterprise across the landscape that are ideally suited for a hyperscale cloud is in most organizations somewhere in the ballpark of about 30%. Some organizations it's a little bit more, some organizations it's a little bit less, but those workloads that are net new workloads that you're leveraging new innovative capabilities like artificial intelligence, IoT, those workloads that maybe have really high levels of variability to support Black Friday, for example, right? The kinds of workloads that are ideally suited for what a hyperscale cloud offers, about 30% for most organizations.
Right.
And if all you're considering is a hyperscale, you're going to hit 30%. You're going to have to figure out, well, what do you do with the rest of it, right? Now, part of the promise of cloud was always, well, if we move everything to the cloud, we can get rid of that boat anchor we call a data center, right? We no longer have to manage our data center. We can let somebody else do that. We can sell the building. We can reinvest those people in something else, and we can get out from under that. Well, if all you're doing is getting 30% of your workloads into a hyperscale cloud, you're still left with that boat anchor of the data center, and all you've done is you've added cost rather than actually taking anything away. And so that kind of leads us, Jake, into my second point of cloud different, which is that the order matters when you're undergoing a cloud journey. What we've seen in our experiences is that most organizations that have undertaken this cloud journey follow a similar path. They set a big goal to get to the cloud in a certain period of time. They identify a target platform, a target hyperscale platform, typically one of the big three that they're going to move their workloads into. They identify a small set of apps that they're going to get started with, and they go start migrating. They go start refactoring. They go start trying to get those apps into the cloud. Well, what they do is they leave everything else where it sits. They divert some of the people over into this new cloud team, and they retrain them, reskill them. But the vast majority of the organization is still stuck with dealing with all of that legacy debt, right? And so they don't get where they want to go with the cloud nearly as fast as they hoped to, because they don't have the resources available to them. It's harder than they thought. The team is still struggling with the existing stuff that they have with all that legacy debt. And because you've taken some resources away from that, now they're struggling even more to keep up. And so you kind of get the lose-lose situation on both sides of that fence.
Yeah.
Where if you think about the approach just a little bit differently and take it in a different order, you can actually get where you want to get to from a hyperscale migration faster and move more effectively across the board. So if you're able to, instead of starting with a hyperscale, start with something like an enterprise cloud like what Expedient can offer, you move a big chunk of your workloads into that cloud operating model where you're taking a lot of that legacy debt, you're putting that into a cloud where you're bringing it up to currency, you're getting the ownership, the ongoing maintenance on someone else, and then you repurpose those resources into reskilling for that hyperscale migration that you want to do with that 30% that you're originally targeting, right? Now that group can focus. Now you've got the team ready to go. You've got the focus. They can really drive the refactoring more quickly than they otherwise could have. And they can actually deliver the end result much more quickly than you otherwise would. We have a case study that we share, which is based on real customer experiences of folks that we've worked with, that suggests that one organization saved about $24 million on their cloud migration. It was an organization of around 12,000 VMs. From a sizing perspective, they saved about $24 million. They were able to save about 240,000, if I remember the number correctly, hours of FTE effort on the journey. And they were able to get done in 3 years what would have taken them 5. And so by just changing the order that we're going to tackle, we can still get that 30% refactoring into the hyperscale cloud and get all the benefits out of that. But we can also get that big chunk of that other 60% into a cloud operating model that we can move very quickly with. It leaves us with 10%. There's always going to be that mainframe, that IBM Power Series, that legacy stuff that you just don't know what to do with, right? But by getting the 90% into a cloud operating model, then it becomes a lot easier to cost effectively move that 10% into a co-location capability and get rid of your data center, right? So that gets you where you want to go in a much more effective way.
What a lot of people don't realize also when it comes time to explore cloud is time of deployment, right? I think everybody is struggling right now with supply chain issues, to say the least.
Absolutely.
Right? And so you get these global companies that think, for one reason or another, I'm going to move, to a public hyperscaler. You have a whole, replatforming conversation. You've got a lot of different, will it work in the public hyperscaler conversation going on with a lot of the digital transformation meetings and things like that. For the people on the other side, it's no, I'm going to own and operate my own metal. Okay, great. But if you're talking about a data center in, let's just say, Moscow, or a data center in some other faraway place, even domestically, how are you going to handle, it's sad to say, but war? How are you going to handle politics? How are you going to handle supply chain, let alone the management and the strategy thereof? So there's a lot more that comes into play that sometimes, I hate to say it, is not thought of during a process or a project like that.
Well, and fortunately, it's not like we have to worry about a global pandemic getting in the way of anything related to this either. So,
right. With that said, Joel, should we go ahead and spin the wheel?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Good conversation so far, Mike.
Let's go ahead. Appreciate it, Mike.
Been fun.
Plenty more details to dive into, and maybe we'll have you back for a part 2 with Expedient in the near future.
Happy to do that.
All right. It landed on number 4 for Tier 4 advisors.
Awesome.
Who would have thought? All right. Good stuff. All right. So we're going to pretend that all viewers and all listeners have signed a NDA with us, by the way. So take that for what it's worth. You are in charge of starting your own company tonight within the next 3 hours. Actually, since it landed on number 4, we'll give you 4 hours. So you're starting a company you have to have a name. You have to have a business model or something you're making or selling. What is that company going to be? And you're starting it in 4 hours. Joel, I know I can see the wheels churning. What are you going with? What company are you starting in 4 hours? This is an Entrepreneur 101 question for you.
Something that's always kind of in the back of my mind, even since my early days in school and kind of growing up, has been waste management or recycling, upcycling, things of that nature. And so what I would like to do is find a way to turn every single little neighborhood into its own little kind of recycling plant or waste management type facility. And turning that into a business, I think we'll need a little bit of kind of some mentoring or coaching, maybe from Jake or Mike. But I would love to replicate what Covanta Energy does, where they burn energy and they take what is, large amounts of garbage, and then they burn garbage down into 10% of what it used to be, and then they power the grid with that energy, and they sell it back to the municipal utilities, but I'd like to find a way to make that happen on like an individual, like neighborhood level. And so how like an individual neighborhood will power itself with the own, garbage and cardboard and everything else that we're consuming on a monthly or weekly basis. How we go about doing that still needs to be determined, but it's going to be, Joel's Energy for the Future LLC.
Wow.
This is terrible.
All right. I like it. Mike, how about you, man? What do you got?
All right. Well, if I got to do this in 4 hours, I got to leverage a little bit of what I've already kind of got. So my business is going to be called the Digital Leadership Academy. And it is going to be a training and consulting business around digital leadership and digital transformation, helping organizations teach their executives what it means to be a digital enterprise and the steps they need to take to go on that journey. So that would be my business. And I would leverage a lot of the stuff that I've done historically with Ohio State to kind of get that off the ground.
I love it. I'm going to pull something completely out of left field. I don't know how this would be monetized, but I'm going to go with, I was at the park the other day watching some people play disc golf. And I was thinking from a community standpoint and getting people out of the house and networking, why shouldn't every neighborhood in the country have a disc golf course set up within the confines of a gated community or a neighborhood? Super random. I don't think it'd make much money, but it'd be fun to go into certain neighborhoods and say, hey, let's build a disc golf course around the neighborhood, let the neighbors get together and compete, have a good time, have an excuse to get out of the house. And I'm sure Jake's disc golf company would probably lose a fair amount of money, but yeah, what the heck? It was.
You'd have fun doing it.
You'd have fun doing it.
That's a fun game. Disc golf is fun.
It is so much fun, right? And some of the videos that are going viral of like hole-in-ones from a few hundred feet back and stuff right now. Anyways, I like disc golf. Never get to play it, but Joel, I know you're a fan of it.
Yeah, I used to play a lot more than I do now, but it's a good chance to get you outside, go walking around.
Absolutely. Hey, Mike, we greatly appreciate your time today. You are an expert in all things cloud, a great partner of ours here at Tier 4. So thank you to you and the Expedient team. Joel, we greatly appreciate you and all your hard work with the podcast as well. To all of those listening in or tuning in, please think of Tier 4 Advisors at tier4advisors.com for your next IT project. We are your technology GPS, your trusted advisor and expert in all things digital transformation, data center, telecom, security, and managed services. Until next time, y'all take care and God bless. Thank you.